Peipei and Almond Mom. I won't repeat what everybody else said, so +1 to everybody. I am going to say that I think a sign of a good deal is both sides are equally unhappy, and if one side is rushing to unanimously vote for something, that's probably not a sign of an even deal. Tangentially, I'm going to talk about something slightly different, so for entertainment value, just kidding, just to give you guys a little bit of diversity in topics. I think my biggest disappointment in the agreement is not addressing governance or the demographics of the students served. I think that we need to discuss as a community what we believe public education should be. Los Altos is an exemplar school district for the country, and I think I take that as a big responsibility. So we should show the country what public education should be. We should set a good precedent. And for me, I think the lack of public accountability, the lack of service for low-income and historically disadvantaged students. I have 2 nephews with severe autism. This is not the autism where they're going to go to a casino and win millions of dollars. This is not that kind of, it's really not, it's very severe. And there's gradients of these type of students in our district, and they're not getting served. I ultimately want to see a holistic public education system where BCS and LASD works together. I truly, truly do not judge people's school decisions. I want one system, a unified system where we work together. I've heard a lot about how competition is good, free market is good, choice is good. I disagree. I think competition, free market choice works in a capitalistic market where profit is key. In public ed, I think we can agree profit is not the goal. When we educate all children in a fair, publicly accountable, transparent, unified system, we strengthen our democracy. And like the Pledge of Allegiance said that we all said together, ultimately this is what will impact our abilities to have life, liberty, and a true pursuit of happiness in this country. So I ask you to please, please define public education as it should be for the rest of the country.
Thank you.
Egan has been here for a long time. We have been here for a long time. People move here with an expectation that their children will go to a neighborhood school. It is completely unreasonable that basically an outside entity to come in here and force our students to go to a different school site further away and less convenient and less safe.
When I was on the board, we hired 2 superintendents, including this one over here. We closed the school. We changed boundaries. And in every one of those key decisions, it was a 5-0 vote. You must have a 5-0 vote for this, whatever it is.
There's a silver lining that came out of all of this, and that is that we actually have bonded together, every single school, and now there are key people, key constituents in all those schools to really support whatever we can get behind as a joint community. And I think that that's a really interesting thing that happened versus being one school against another school versus affecting here or there. We're really in this for the long haul. And I really encourage you to prioritize the problems in the district and really prioritize our problems first, more than the problem of BCS. At many neighborhood meetings, there have been discussions of attendance boundaries and declining enrollments, what to do with the 10th site, that they really need an elementary school there. I think that the least of those problems should be BCS, and that our district should be prioritized over all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
To understand. I think there's a big question about the enrollment cap. And is this something that is actually enforceable, or are there ways around this? Because it feels like that's the biggest thing we're getting back in the bargain. And is this something that we can actually enforce? And the second is, I'm sure you've gone through a lot to try to figure out other sites. And it would be good to understand more about what did you have to go through, what other things were considered, and why all of you are very intelligent, rational people, so I'm sure there's a reason why you settled upon this, but I'd love to understand that. And I think that's actually one of the biggest things that's blocking this at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Concrete proposal, and we need to build on that and allow time, because this is not where we need to be. There are so many disadvantages for LASD. There's a lot for BCS, but little for other people, so please keep in mind first responsibility, LASD. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the bad choices facing us, this particular one is probably the worst. Okay. And let me articulate the reason. I have expressed this in the past in a couple of other meetings, but for the benefit of the other board members, my number one concern stems from the fact that the Egan location is a fantastic location. And by housing BCS at that location, what we are doing is for every new family coming in, giving them a fantastic choice to send their kids, which is BCS and not LASD, just by virtue of the location of that. What that means is that many of these families will choose BCS perhaps for their junior high. And by the way, if I'm going to go to BCS for my junior high, I'll go there for my elementary school too, just because I do not want to send my kids across El Camino. And after the 10 years, BCS is going to come after one more campus and one more campus and one more campus. In other words, in my mind, this is the beginning of the end of LASD, and we should predict that happening. So, go ahead with the Mountain View site, house BCS partly over there, give part of that site to the local schools, for the local elementary schools, for Mountain View kids as well. You satisfy the preference requirement, but also you have BCS on that side, and then split the rest of BCS on this side as well. And I think that way all of us share the pain as well. Give it some thought.
Thank you,
It has some
Shahzad.
merit. Thank you.
When I first came here, I told you guys that I'd be open to starting a legal fund to help you guys, support you in your efforts. I want to let you guys know that so far, we've already raised close to $300,000 in pledges for more than 200,000. And we've just scratched the surface on that, one. Second thing, I want to tell you guys, like I'm an attorney, I'm a transactional attorney, I do a hell of a lot of deals. I can absolutely with confidence tell you, given how lopsided this deal is, BCS will take this deal 6 months from now. They'll take it 12 months from now. They'll take it 2 years from now. There is no rush.
Can't reverse it. Now the problem I have is I don't have all the data, but all the anecdotal evidence suggests that the charter school is not as inclusive and not interested in being as inclusive. So for instance, data that says you need to contribute $5,000, whereas the public schools say $1,200. So that's more than 4x than what the public school says. And there's a lot of economic analysis that says that today, wealthier schools, the top 40, spend 4 times as much on schools. So I would strongly urge you to not make a structural decision that 10 years from now you're going to look back and say, that really hurt the diversity of this community. Any decision you make should really promote the strength of the diversity and the strength of the schools. And the structural decision you make is going to be very profound, so I just encourage you to say, but the last thing, we just can't take the risk of making a bad decision.
And I think, I also looked at the scores, and I drilled down on the scores. Egan is performing 3.5 times better on Algebra 1 than Bolas Charter. A lot of people are surprised about that, and thank you for that. Their failure rate is 3.5 times higher than Egan. That needs to sink in. We need a community that does good at math. We are doing better. Okay, so what's wrong? Is it social demographics? I looked at the numbers. They almost have no Hispanics. We have about 10%. Nobody has mentioned that in the room. I'll be politically incorrect and mention it. I think Bolas Charter has a diversity issue. I think they have an issue with handicap. Yeah, break that out and get that land. That's a phenomenal bargain. 25 million plus 75 million, 100 million. You'll never get an offer like that again. Amazing job to you for doing that.
Bolas' original site. And the Bolas parents or the founders kept harassing the mom during that period, just trying to force them out. And in the longer term, they are determined to take over the Los Altos school district, one school at a time. And how are they going to do that? They're going to grow, so they're not going to limit their enrollment cap voluntarily. Today, it's Egan. With Egan, after 10 years, they're going to grow even more. They will not be satisfied with just Egan alone. These board members are self-appointed, self-selected. They are not accountable to a Los Altos school district. It's the ideology that dominates their direction. They will not cooperate with us. That's what I learned from that story. So that's why I want to echo Peipei's point that we really need to focus on the governance. Unless their board member is public elected, they're not a willing or cooperative partner for us to negotiate with, especially not in closed door. That only works in their favor. We need to expose their bad behavior and make this a transparent process going forward. hereby, I truly urge you to consider this in your future negotiation, make it public, and even better.
Whatever you need, and we want to help you. So I understand, I feel like BCS really pushed, and you know, and you guys didn't have our support, and because we didn't know what you needed. So I'm really, really urging you, once you do give us that feedback so we can understand and you present those alternatives, also let us know what you need. You know, we have that defense fund, we can easily move that to another fund or whatever. But we're brainstorming without knowing what we should brainstorm for. So please let us help you. Thank you.
To occur. I'm begging you to understand that our relationship is more important than any specific deal. Together we can accomplish great things. Together we can fight against what we believe is an unfair, unjust playing field with regard to charter law. Together we can improve and champion our program to build a stronger local community. There are people in this room who are here for the long haul, as long as we have a strong relationship, built on open and transparent processes and dialogue, honesty and trust. Win or lose the longer-term charter school issue, we need each other. I'm asking you to focus on your constituents and our relationship.
Thank you.
Meetings, I've met many new people, all sorts of people at different schools, and I think, as you heard already, you have the chance to harness that. We're all saying, how can we help? We're trying to raise money, we're trying to organize, we want to bring new ideas to the table. With time, I think you actually have a resource at your disposal that maybe you didn't have before, because this has actually activated us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
After a meeting in her office, was told that a property that had been listed and had an offer on removed the offer because of the uncertainty of the schools. Now, that's been talked about as, now, will our property values be affected by this? Well, if this is an indicator, the answer is yes.
Read through all the proposals. You shouldn't use that word, you commissioned a task force to investigate possible sites. The top two votes were to have the elementary school at NCS, to move Bullis there. Egan received 4 votes compared to 6 or 7 of the other 2 choices. The superintendent submitted a proposal to Bullis that was public, and we come back and we get Egan moving, and yes or no. So, and then on top of that, you get a 46-page document. Vivek back there will tell you when somebody hands you a 46-page document, they're trying to ram something through because it's good. And I just want you to think, Monday, let's get through Monday. This yes or no means no. Thank you.
And I'd like to talk to you about it from my own perspective. And that is, number one, the obvious thing to do, since we wanted to buy a site in the north of El Camino, because that's where all the kids are appearing these days, that's the greatest growth area, the obvious thing to do is to put an elementary school up there and give those kids that live up there a neighborhood school to go to like everybody else has. But that creates a problem. And the problem is, if you're going to put BCS on a site, you'd have to take some other site to put the charter school on and redistrict, basically, the whole Altos school district, and that is not fair for the families of this district. Secondly, you can think of, well, you could put BCS up there, and the problem with that is, it's only a 10-acre site or thereabouts. And this is a 1,000-student school right now, growing to apparently to 1,100 with this agreement. And that one's really not fair to the parents of the BCS community. And so you found a compromise, which I found to be very impressive. But I think, having heard everything I've heard tonight, I advise you to take more time to look at this, consider making some changes, and engage, as somebody said, with the BCS community in doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you gotta really vote no next month or next week. Now, that said, that starts the Prop 39 process. There's other painful issues. There's gonna be probably sharing at Loyola. And I urge everybody to help the Loyola community in this sharing and help them put the best foot forward and effectively compete with the BCS at the Loyola campus, the Black campus, and the Egan campus. That's how we stop the growth of the charter school. We become the better alternative. And never forget that.
My biggest impression of the board members is the fear of BCS expansion.
Also the fear of a competition with the BCS if we share campus with them. So that actually surprised me a lot. I think if the board is truly passionate about public education, you should welcome the competition. You should really have confidence that you can improve the education quality so BCS or any other charter schools will not become a threat anymore. I think signing the agreement maybe can help to cap the BCS enrollment for 10 years. But in the long term, it will actually encourage BCS to take over more campus or even defeat the LASD board eventually. I think you should really seriously consider if you're going to vote yes on the agreement.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Rebecca Sines, and I want to emphasize doctor tonight because I'm a local pediatrician. I'm also a Los Altos resident, a Covington parent, and I attended Egan. I thought it was important that I come up here tonight and speak to you with respect of my pediatrician opinion, because I didn't hear any of that on April 8th when I attended. I want you to know that I strongly oppose this proposed agreement. I think that I should emphasize I agree with many people who have spoken about the safety, particularly bicycle-related safety and risk of injuries, and I think that were we to move Egan to the new site, that we would see an increased number of bicycle-related injuries, and I hope we would not see any deaths. Additionally, I just want to briefly mention that, and remind people, because I'm sure you all know this, that our early childhood experiences in life impact who we become as adults, both our mental health and our physical health. Community is vitally important to children, and I think that with this agreement, by moving Egan, we would be tearing our communities apart, and that we would potentially be having a negative impact on the mental well-being, the development, and the just eventual mental health of our children. Lastly, I want you to know that there is data that does support that if you have liquor stores near early adolescence, and I mentioned this because it was brought up on April 8th and I looked into it, people are concerned about site of the new proposed site. And if you locate early adolescents next to liquor stores, their alcohol consumption does increase. I urge you to vote no.
Thank you.